It's another video from Ozzy's Robot. Brought to you by the Banana Collection.
Oh, welcome back, everyone. Come on in. You can see the light turned on by itself like magic. Like magic. And as always, welcome. Thank you for joining me on another cool, rare toy that you may have seen in one of my rare live stream appearances. And if you didn't, now you have the opportunity to see it. I had the light off because this does have a light effect, so I'll probably turn it back off. But anyway, this is the hard to find, and especially hard to find in very minty condition, Walking Knight in Armor. But before we get into it, as always, I encourage you, get comfortable, sit your keister in your most comfortable chair, barker lounger, lazy boy, grab a steaming cup of coffee, stir it and clank it a bit, grab a snack, focus and pay attention now, because we're going to answer the age-old question: is this a monster toy? Is it a robot? Is it just a battery toy? Is it just a medieval-inspired toy? Or is it maybe all the above? All right, now, if you're focused and paying attention, let's look at the box first. See if the box gives us any clues, any indication, any hints as to the nature of this toy. And you can see here, it just has basically your knight stabbing his foes, his nemesis. Well, actually, he's not saying, well, they're jousting back there, and he's just kind of walking off on his own. And you have like a very simply designed castle. They didn't spend a lot of time, but the illustration of the knight is pretty cool. And, you know, this font is kind of reminiscent of something you'd see on Game of Thrones, I suppose. And then you have the Masudaya logo there, and it's a cool green color too. And it's kind of an unusual box, to be honest with you, and this is not a common toy for Masudaya. I'm trying to think if this body was used on anything. Off the top of my head, I have no idea. I mean, I think that's where the crossover maybe with a robot is, if people feel like, well, this could have been like a robot body. And there are like what you could interpret as rivets too. So that could be part of it. Look at that nice sword. You know, the little details here. The sword is going through walking. We like our swords with our knights, even though his is kind of flopped in. And then you have two more swords here. Why is that red? It was almost like somebody colored it in, but thank God they didn't do too much damage. So that's your box. He means all business. Now the arm on this was a little wonky, so I actually managed to stick it in. John at the Robot Hut was right. You could basically undo the arm to connect that shaft without opening the entire toy, but I just kind of like popped it in. It's hard to explain, but unless there was a tab that broke, it's just like a weird kind of design that like just sort of pushes in almost like a very small grommet into the hole, and that's what supports the arm. But he's right. You could, if you took the arm, well, yeah, you would untab the arm, and then you can probably reattach it in there a little bit more firmly. But, you know, for now, it's working, so I'll leave it be. It's holding the shield up as it was intended to do. Now, the shield is missing quite a bit on these, and based on that arm design, I'm not surprised. I mean, you could lose the arm, let alone the shield. So, and then the sword is often broken. Now, you could see here, it's kind of bent in, and that has a lot to do with it being stored in the box. The box presses against, it's not going to be pointed out. So now it just adopted that shape. You're not going to really, well, I mean, you could probably try to heat it and move it, but why bother? I mean, it is one of those kind of like early rubber features that if you mess with it too much, you could end up breaking the thing. Now, this also has a very specific remote. And if you're in the market for one of these toys and you want it to be 100% authentic, it has this forward, stop, and reverse green remote. You can see it's lithographed not only with the directions, but also with the Masudaya logo. And it's kind of got an uncommon design to it compared to a lot of other remotes. So this is the correct remote. If you don't have this, you have a remote that was replaced, and that's also common. So I was lucky to come across this very nice example. Now I'm reluctant to handle it because I think the arm could pop out, but I'm going to try to do it ever so carefully. Let's get sort of slowly around this guy. I actually picked the camera up. You can see here, I said it in my live stream, the face reminds me of the Destroyer from Thor, you know, the one that was actually in the comics as well as the cinematic presentation. And you can see here, now you can see as you flip the third dimension here, you can see how the sword is pressed in just from sitting in the box. And then you have kind of like the rivets, which you would have in armor, and that's why it can sort of be construed as robotic. And then you have your lion, you have your Masudaya logo. I am very curious if somebody knows specifically if this, look at the way the head's tabbed in, by the way, if this was used, this body pressing and the feet on another toy, because I can't off the top of my head. But, you know, I've dealt with thousands and thousands of toys. It's hard to remember them all. And I'll get a little close-up there of the arm. I love that. It looks blue, like in my viewfinder, but it's more of a teal green. For some reason, the iPhone has a hard time picking up tones, the blue tones. But the teal and the red really set it off with the gold. I mean, it's very unusually colored compared to a lot of other toys. And it's quite elaborate. I like the lithography on this, even the shield. So there's your tin design on it. And now, if it's working properly, it should go forward and backward. Let me dim the light again as long as it holds out. And let's start with backwards. You can see the light flashing, and then forward. Gotta love that lighting effect. You know what's good? I'm gonna actually be able to place the shield exactly where I want, which is right there. Oh, but the pin foot, I gotta get the feet flat. Okay, so in order to get the feet flat, the shield's gonna be a little higher. So I'm not gonna mess with the bulb. Well, when I say mess with the bulb, run it any longer, because, you know, the bulb is working, everything is working, the arm is connected. You got to see it working, you got to see how cool it is. Now, let me conclude by saying this, because I put a post on Facebook about how some people consider this robotic and some people consider it a monster toy. I'm going to put this in my monster toy case, and I'll tell you why. To me, if you've ever seen the original Scooby-Doo, the Ghost Knight, I think they call him, was one of the classic iconic villains of Scooby-Doo, and he sort of resembles this. So I would make the argument, and almost any horror movie, even if it was kind of like a light comedy like the Scooby-Doo, say like Disney's Haunted Mansion, or anything where they walk through a house and there's a medieval suit of armor, 9 out of 10 times they're haunted. I mean, they come to life, they move around. So with that in mind, like with the circles of battery toy collectors I know, they always consider this to be, you know, in the monster vein, even though some people don't feel that it's quite that. But to me, it works. It works with the snappy dragon. In fact, that's probably where hopefully I have room. I mean, a knight and a dragon certainly go together. So that's my thought. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you think this would, you know, cross over. Well, you know, at best, cross over into monsters or robots. I'd say the robot connection's a little more generous, but for monsters, I think it's definitely spot on. So with that, thanks as always for your time. It's greatly appreciated. And if you like it, please thumb up the video. And if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so, because I would also appreciate that along with your time. So thanks again, my friends, and I will talk to you later.